The PvP vendor is releasing soon, and with it comes some additional upgrade materials on the weekly reset. So for all of you Gunlancers getting ready to step into the arena for the first time, or even if you're a more veteran Gunlancer, this guide is for you. The Gunlancer is one of the most difficult classes to play in Lost Ark PvP. It's very slow, its dodge is weird because it's a backstep, and it has a lot more on-the-fly decision making than most classes due to its identity skill being a toggle. There are two builds I'll be going over today, and they kind of relate to the type of content you can do in PvP arenas, and that is 1v1s and 3v3 team play. The builds are quite similar, but I'll go over the stat distributions, the skills, and their tripods, and finally the playstyle you want to go with. Starting out, we have the 1v1 build, and Gunlancers can really excel in this mode because one of their main issues, which is mobility, is less of a concern due to the smaller arena size. For your stats, you will want to run with 750 swiftness, 249 domination, and 1 point in crit. The 750 points in swiftness gives us a nice rounded set of stats with attack speed, move speed, and most importantly, cooldown reduction. It really helps speed up the class, and it's very important for almost every class in PvP to have a lot of swiftness so they can just get around the arena more quickly and get more spells off throughout the arena duration and stuff like that. The 249 domination increases our damage to opponents who are stunned or knocked down, and as I'm sure a lot of you are going to find out or already know, there are a lot of knockdowns and stuns within this game. So basically domination is just a very efficient PvP stat. Lastly, the 1 point in crit is a very tiny chance to actually land a critical strike, but sometimes that small chance to crit is all it takes to win a round. And besides, it's not like the one extra point in domination is going to make or break anything. So let's get into the skills that you'll be using and their tripods. First, we have Bash here, and for the tripods, you want to take Armor Destruction, Ready Attack, and Echo. Armor Destruction is going to reduce the armor on anyone who gets stunned by your Bash. Ready Attack is going to give you a short damage increase for 5 seconds, and finally Echo just increases the stun duration, and that increased duration is very important because it actually lets you get a full surge cannon off without the opponent kind of having the stun end early and therefore no longer affected by domination. So basically, Echo actually lets you benefit from domination more effectively. And next we have Gunlance Shot, and for these tripods, you want Tenacity, Enhanced Strike, and Exploding Spear. This will cause the Gunlance to actually lunge forward whenever they use this, and it gives you super armor, meaning you will not be susceptible to any kind of knockdowns or anything like that. It just gives you a lot more resilience and makes you more annoying to deal with. For our third skill, we have Surge Cannon. This is our primary DPS skill and where a lot of our damage is going to come from. And for the tripods here, we want to go with Piercing Shot. This is going to let you ignore a pretty good chunk of the enemy's armor, so it just increases the damage passively through there. Next we have Precise Barrage. This is going to increase the damage by 40% if you manage to get the perfect timing. The other option you could go with is Overcharge for a little bit more damage, but it kind of limits the uses for Surge Cannon because you have to charge it up longer, meaning the opponent has more opportunity to escape. The only time you could really get a full charge off is during a bash, which isn't always the easiest option. So just for the sake of consistency, I like to go Precise Barrage. And lastly, we have Focus Fire, and this is going to cause your Surge Cannon to do a little barrage and just increase the damage. So it'll look something like this. For our fifth skill, we have Hook Chain, and this is a great utility skill to pull enemies towards you, where you can then follow it up with either a bash or a knockdown. And it's just a really great skill to deal with those evasive classes. For the first tripod, you want to take Quick Prep. This is going to reduce the cooldown. It's already a pretty long cooldown, so this is just lets you get more of them off throughout the arena. Next, you can either go Sharp Chain to just inflict a small damage over time effect on anyone who gets hit by the chain, regardless if they're pulled in or not. Sometimes I like to go with Shackles though, and this is going to reduce the move speed of anyone who's hit by it. Even if you do miss, or rather if the opponent does not get pulled in, but they still get hit, they'll have this move speed penalty applied where you can then follow it up with one of your other skills and still maybe land a knockdown. And finally, for the third tripod, we have wide hit. This just gives it a bigger radius so you can have an opportunity to hit more, if you basically just less chance to whiff. And next up, we have dash upper fire. This only gets leveled up to 4. And by the way, every other skill besides dash upper fire gets leveled to 10. So this is our only level 4 skill. It's great for knocking opponents up. It's a very quick animation. So just an overall very useful utility skill. And for the tripod, we'll take the second tripod, excellent mobility. This causes you to lunge forward a little bit and just lets you cover a little bit more distance. And now we have counter gunlance. This is a really useful tool to apply some hard CC and just kind of force opponents to second guess whether or not they can initiate on you. And it's just, I guess, a way to counter initiate and go on the offensive yourself. So for the first tripod, you want to take a ready attack. This is going to give you a damage buff anytime you successfully counter. And for the second tripod, it's quick prep. This is going to reduce the cooldown and just let you be a little bit more of a nuisance and harder to pin down. And finally, there's lightning strike spear. This causes your counter gunlance to no longer knock opponents down, but instead you're going to apply a hard CC by electrifying them. This is going to let you follow up with a charged or a surge cannon or any of your other attacks. So this is just a really useful enabler tool for yourself. And lastly, we have shield charge. This is a pretty well-rounded utility skill that lets you kind of get around the arena a little bit quicker. It forces opponents to be a little bit wary of you because as they see you charging in, they know that you're like fishing for a knockup. And so it kind of forces them to dash, where you then kind of have the advantage because they no longer have that super armor option when they do dash out. For the tripods, you want to take sturdy armor or quick prep. Sturdy armor is just going to give you a damage reduction while you're dashing. So this adds a little bit more to that utility where maybe you want to use it to run away and disengage. You'll take reduced damage while you're disengaging. Quick prep will reduce the cooldown, but it's not really that long of a cooldown in the first place, so this is maybe just more of a secondary option. For your second tripod, you want to take wide hit. This is going to increase the range in which you actually can hit people from, and it really can catch people off guard because you're hitting from a much further radius than they might expect, getting that free knockdown where you can, force your opponent to react. And lastly, for the third tripod, this is actually what makes this skill knock opponents up and what really makes this skill so versatile. So when you take this skill, you will you'll swing your gun lance in the air, if you can see here, and when you do that, it knocks up the opponent. For your awakening skills in 1v1, both options are very good. Your first awakening skill will instantly generate 25% of your identity shield meter, provide a 40% damage reduction, and deal a sizable amount of damage on top of applying a hard crowd control with a stun. This is a very good option to take if you're frequently against enemies with excessive amounts of super armor like Death Blades and Deadeyes, gunslingers, stuff like that. It can also be used to stall while you're waiting for some of your cooldowns because you can just lay this down, get a little bit of damage in, maybe stun the opponent, and while you stand within that area, you're immune to crowd control, and also you'll take the 40% reduced damage, meaning you are basically immortal. The second awakening skill is also a strong option because it can be comboed into very easily. It does a lot more damage than our first awakening, and it also provides a crit chance buff while standing within the area, and finally it knocks opponents down. So overall, it's a little bit less utility for a lot more damage. Alright, so let's talk about the playstyle. This build relies very heavily on some very long cooldown abilities to actually deal any damage. Surge Cannon and Charge Stinger are both 30-second cooldowns, but deal almost, like 90% of your damage outside of your awakening skills. So using these without prior setup is going to have some major setbacks. The main playstyle and tactic is to force knockdowns with either shield charge, dash upper fire, and gunlance shot. Once you've baited an opponent's stand ability, which is on about a 12-second cooldown, reapplying a second knockdown should allow you to perform your full burst combo of Surge Cannon into Charge Stinger. I'll go over some of these full combos a little bit later because there's a little bit more nuance than that. Another way to force knockdowns is to simply trade hits by activating your class identity shield as you go on the offensive. This shield prevents you from being knocked down while letting you get off your attacks, letting you win the trade. You primarily want to activate this shield whenever you shield charge, dash upper fire, or are just trying to bait the enemy into getting close so you can use your bash. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the 3v3 build. For the most part, this build is going to be identical to the 1v1 build with one skill change and a little bit more of a playstyle change. Again, for your stats, you will want to run 750 swiftness, 249 domination, and 1 point in crit. So like I said, the skills are almost identical. The only change we're making from the 1v1 build is the addition of Nalagia's energy in place of Charge Stinger. Nalagia's energy just allows you to provide a little bit more support to your team by activating a damage reduction shield. This shield is insanely strong and it can completely negate some of the strongest bursts in the game. The tripods you want to take with Nalagia's energy are Quick Prep to reduce the cooldown. You want to take Effectiveness, which is going to reduce the damage people take while shielded by 50%. And lastly, you want to take Survive, which is going to provide that actual shielding to your allies. In 3v3s, you almost exclusively want to take Guardian's Protection. I mean, there are some instances where Lance of Judgment can also be good, but yeah, for the most part, I just take Guardian's Protection all the time because it just has so much more team utility than Lance of Judgment that I feel like you're just losing a lot of potential. Any of your allies who stand within your Guardian's Protection are going to take that reduced 40% damage. They're going to also be immune to any kind of crowd control. And lastly, they'll be able to follow up on your 4-second stun, which is just insane. As for the general playstyle in 3v3s, it's more of an engager slash peeler. You're not going to be, or at least you shouldn't be, the one dealing most of the damage. Your main role is to get into the middle of the fight, demand the enemies pay attention to you by getting them to attack you, and just force knockdowns and rolls, which benefit your allies in the long run. In addition to that, you provide extra support with your Nalagia's energy, providing those crucial shields in those moments of big burst. And lastly, you provide a lot of peeling through your hard crowd control abilities like your counter Gunlance and bash, and you also just have your knockdowns to help peel your allies if they get caught. Alright, so let's go over some of the combos that you can use as a Gunlancer. So first and foremost, you have your typical hook into bash into your Surge Cannon. That's going to be your standard combo that almost, every Gunlancer is going to utilize. Another combo you can do is your counter, which you can follow up into a Surge Cannon. The next combo doesn't really do a lot of damage, but it's good for just like kind of keeping your opponent crowd controlled, and that's going to be you charge into a dash upper shot, and then finally your Gunlance shot. Like I said, that combo doesn't deal a ton of damage. It's just good for keeping the enemy crowd controlled so that maybe your team can either follow up or you're just trying to finish off someone. This next combo can be used if your hook chain is off cooldown or you just find the right opportunity. But basically you want to shield charge in, knock them in the air, kind of walk a little bit closer and then bash. You'll have just enough time to bash the opponent as they're falling from the knockup, where they'll get stunned and have to lay on the ground. And then you can follow that up with a Surge Cannon. So that would look something like this. Knock them in the air, stun, I missed. Let me try that again. This can be a little bit tricky, especially if knockups are a little wonky. And like I said, the range is pretty important. It's kind of finicky sometimes, and you might have to walk a little bit closer if you happen to knock them in the air at max range with your shield charge. So this next combo is our big damage combo, and you have to bait someone into already using their stand ability. So you want to already bait out a stand by landing a previous knockup, and if you're able to get another knockdown, you'll just Surge Cannon into a Charge Stinger because you know that they can't react to it. Alright, so like I said, if you have enough shield gauge, you can kind of bait enemies into attacking you by using your shield, and then just using a bash, just an empty bash if they happen to get too close to you. While your shield is up, you're going to be immune to any kind of push, crowd controls and stuff like that, any kind of knockups or knockdowns, or displacement. So it's just very good to manage your identity shield and try to be as sticky as possible. And lastly, for our awakening, you can combo it simply like this, just a hook chain into a bash and into a spear of judgment. All right, friends, that's going to wrap up my initial guide to the Gunlancer in PvP. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. But this was Goobs saying thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.